Welcome to episode 95 of the ASC Podcast with John Goehle for March 19th, 2020, recording live from our studio in Spencerport, New York. We would like to thank our sponsors, Ambulatory Healthcare Strategies, Surgical Information Systems, and Encompass Healthcare Data Solutions. For more information about our sponsors, please visit our website. This is Sue Cronkite, Chief Researcher for the ASC Podcast and Senior Nurse Consultant for Ambulatory Healthcare Strategies, and I'm with John Goehle, recognized as one of the nation's leading experts in the ambulatory surgery industry. Joining us remotely from Rochester, New York, are Jenna Alvarez, Senior Nurse Consultant with AHS, Alex Borneman, Director of Operations with AHS, and Judy D'Ambrosio, Director of Educational Services with AHS. From Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Lori Rodrigues, Director of Clinical Service for AHS, and from West Palm Beach, Florida, Ann Geier, Chief Nursing Officer for Surgical Information Systems, and from Atlanta, Georgia, is Zach Kaloritis, Financial Consultant with AHS. So we have a crowd.
We do. I'm very excited. So thank you for, we're up to 19 listeners right now. It is growing. Thank you for all the support that you have for the ASC Podcast. We have tripled in the last week and a half, our listeners. And we owe that all to you and the support that you have for us. So thank you for supporting us. Thank you for passing the word on. Thank you to our sponsors for helping to pay the bills here during this tough time as we increase our technology. If you are looking on YouTube right now, you can see what our control room looks like. And you can see I keep adding more screens. Sue gets a little crazy with me after a while because, I can barely handle it. And you can't even see all the screens. There's still more off to the side. So we're just waiting a little bit for more listeners to come on board. So we'll do a little bit of banter. Please, another thing, Alex, we just lost you. If we don't answer your questions, well, first of all, if you have any questions, please enter them into the chat thing in your. Of course, I'm pointing to it on the screen, and you're all using cell phones, but you enter it into the chat function on your cell phone. We will see it live here. Send an email to comments at ascpodcast.com. Sue is monitoring that on that screen way over there. We're also monitoring all of our email accounts. So, if you can't figure some of these things out, just email us. Hopefully we'll be able to see it. Hang on, Judy. We're going to have to let Alex in first. And we'll try to answer on air. So any questions that you have to start, we'd appreciate it. Telling us. One thing that I did want to point out is how important it is to visit our website. I know most of you are, since our website is causing some challenges right now.
Your sister.
What's happening? So please visit our website at ascpodcast.com and follow the links on it. Actually, let me show you what the website looks like so that you know where to look. So this is the website. And when you go in there, you can see that there's this big link right here if you're watching on YouTube. Where you can see all the resources. So just click on that and you'll be able to go in and see all the resources that we have. Everything that we talk about will have some form up there on the website. Of course, all of these podcasts are recorded for future reference. All of the live podcasts that we have done over the last week and a half are available at ascpodcast.com and, of course, through our podcast, through all the major podcast channels. Okay. We're up to about 23 listeners right now. And let's just talk about, there we go, finally. And by the way, my staff has been working on the script all day long. I have no idea. I just know that it's all there and organized, and I'll try to very carefully go through these things. I did want to talk about some of the conversations. I'll start off with some of the things that have been going on with me. So I've been on the phone almost all day long dealing with some client issues, various issues that have popped up throughout the day. A lot of questions about what to do when the operation starts shutting down and you start working from home. There's a lot of questions about PTO, a lot of questions about the various benefits that are going on, how to help with the nurses. I'm just going to go quickly through what we've had. One of the big questions that have come up is what happens if I stay open and yet all of my but my municipality has said that we should be limiting limiting elective surgery. And as somebody that works in doing legal consulting, and I think, Lori, you can also say this, and I think, and you do some of it too, is that we know that after this is all done, there's going to be a lot of lawsuits, that the trial lawyers are just going to have a field day with this, and probably looking back on the decision-making process that we had during the crisis. So I talked to a senator out in California yesterday, and the administrator there was kind of frustrated with the doctors because they basically have not only continuing to do surgery, but are actually increasing the number of surgeries they're doing, and they're kind of refusing to shut down at all. And while we understand that you're going to want to keep open as long as you can, you have to be very careful, especially if you are being told not to do elective surgery and you choose to make everything elective surgery. That we are encouraging you to document fully how you're making that decision and what is the basis for all of that. So, and we've given some forms on the website for you to do that. You want to document in the governing body minutes. You're going to want to document every case that you do that is non-elective, so that you're covering yourself down the road. But be very careful if you have been told not to do elective surgery and you continue doing things that many other people would consider elective. One of the questions that was asked today of me is that as we start to shut down, are we going to need a new inspection before reopening? The answer to that is no. At this, you still have your license until you lose your license or your certification or your, not accreditation, but if your license or certification, you can open without having to go through another inspection. Other quick questions about PTO. What happens when you go on unemployment insurance? If, would you be able to keep your PTO and then get it later? This varies dramatically by state. We have a couple lawyers that we hope to have on. I don't know when that's going to happen. We're going to do it as quickly as possible. At the very least, hopefully we can get some guidance from the lawyers. So depending upon the situation in your state or the state laws, sometimes the PTO payout will not decrease benefits. Sometimes this is impacted by the timing of those benefits. For example, in some situations where employees receive ongoing payments for vacation while they are laid off, those payments can reduce the amount that they receive under unemployment. Then again, some states allow all workers with a set date for resuming employment to obtain full benefits while receiving vacation pay. We'll try to get a lawyer, as I said, to talk about it. When states do, I'm not going to go on to that. Okay, other benefits. So another point that we need to bring up here is that you should be having a conversation right now with your benefits company. Hopefully most of you have a company that helps you with the benefits. And if you do furlough your employees, that's a change in employment. They at that point they could potentially start losing their health benefits, and then they would fall under COBRA. So COBRA notifications are done by the organization that provides your benefit services or by the insurance company. So check with them, get advice. Hopefully they'll have some forms or some documents that they can give you that you can hand out to your employees, but be prepared for this and be prepared to answer some very tough questions. We're already getting a lot of questions on this, and unfortunately we can't figure out every situation because it will depend not only on the timing of them losing their benefits or their benefits changing, will depend upon the insurance policy that you have. And of course, the state will dictate some of the terms with regard to, I'm sorry, I'm misspeaking here. And then the COBRA benefits will kick in based upon what your advisor will give you. We also want to remind people that your nurses are going to be very valuable during this time. So even though we might be laying them off, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for them to find employment elsewhere. For example, in New York City, there is a website where nurses can turn to sign up and express their interest in temporary employment. I assume this is going to happen in other areas. So keep an eye out for opportunities. Definitely, I think it's our duty to help our nurses through this difficult time as they try to find ways to continue their paycheck.
And I do want to point out, too, for those in New York State that were on the Capitol Health Consulting call, I did misspeak earlier. I meant to say that this New York City website, not New York State. New York State does not have any guidance on this. You have to go to your local health department. But New York City is the only local health department that actually has a link like this.
Got it. So thank you, Lori. We had a question today about ACLS, PALS, and BLS, and one of our centers, of course, with Murphy's Law, all of their certifications end very shortly. They were about to go into retraining, and they wanted to know what to do. So one thing I do want to remind everybody, it's important for you to understand that PALS, ACLS, and BLS training needs to be hands-on. That is a CMS requirement. That is an accreditation requirement. There are options, of course, to do these things online, but they don't meet the CMS and the AAHC or the accreditation requirements. Lori contacted the American Heart Association today, and they verbally told us, I don't think we have this in writing, correct, Lori?
Correct. It's not in writing.
Okay, but we have verbally heard from them that they are automatically extending PALS, ACLS, and BLS certifications for 60 days. They do recommend that you contact the trainer to let them know about your future needs and prepare for that need to get training immediately after the expiration. With regard to shutting down, we know that many of you are in the process of shutting down operations, or discontinuing operations might be a better term. You need to check your state law to determine if it is required to be reported to the state. Those of you that are clients of Ambulatory Healthcare Strategies, we're already helping you through that process. New York State is one of those states that does require notification. An interesting question did come up, is that if you shut down, but you still have people coming into work. So, for example, if your administrator and your nurse manager come to work, then technically you're not shut down. You're just not doing cases at that point. That's a kind of an iffy situation. I'm not quite sure. I think the better thing to do would probably be to report that anyway.
I agree.
Okay. Can you just ask somebody? I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't know if you had to do it, the live link.
Oh. Can somebody email Jeffrey a live link to the podcast?
He's having trouble getting
He's having problems getting in. Sorry about that.
One other thing that John was just about to say before he had a flight of ideas is that not only are you reporting possibly to your state, but if you are an accredited association, you want to report to your accrediting body if you're having a change in your status at this time, just to keep them aware and that they know whether or not you are performing cases or not. It's always better to over-report than under-report.
Lori, while we're on that subject of accreditation, can you just kind of tell a little bit about your experience today? Because you said that they are still doing accreditation surveys at this point.
As far as I know, they are. I am a surveyor for AAHC, so I can only really speak about them. And I am scheduled, as is my life safety partner, to do a survey on Monday. And we have not heard that it has been canceled. So we have another 24 hours, 26 hours since where they live, but as to whether or not we're moving forward with this. So as far as I know, and again, my life safety inspector, we are planning on being there next week. Surprise, whoever you are, I'll see you there. But so that's something else to take into account. If you are an organization that is expecting someone to walk in your door, they might, I guess, especially if it's a deemed status or if it's a follow-up deemed status survey. That's all I can tell you based on my experience as of today. But, maybe we'll learn more. We have some more training supposedly tomorrow, but right now we're coming.
Right. So we'll keep you up to date on that. as we learn more. But we should reiterate, I think everybody knows this now, all regular deemed status surveys, all CMS surveys, all state certification surveys have ceased. And at this point, the only types of surveys that are going on are emergency type surveys and regular accreditation surveys that have not yet been canceled, as Lori was alluding to. The ASC Association has published a variety of excellent resources on their website at ascassociation.org. The information up there includes guidance on elective surgery, and I know you're going to start getting an awful lot of different types of guidance on elective surgery. I think that's now going to be the problem, is how do we kind of keep up with all that? There's updates on ASCA 2020. Hint, it is still on. There's state-specific guidance up there, excellent resources there for the individual states, more than we've been able to gather ourselves. We just have limited time to be able to do that. General resources about the virus and links to the national links, human resource links, infection control links, and links to the CDC recorded webinars, which I think would be useful also. Okay. I'm going to bounce to Lori and Jenna to talk about post-operative phone calls.
So any of our clients, we sent this out in our email this morning, but one of the things we're recommending is now more than ever, your post-op phone calls, use those to, use those as a critical part of your continuity of care. Make sure that you're asking patients if they're having any COVID-19 symptoms and document that in their record or in your records. And we also highly recommend you do an additional follow-up call after the patient has left, during that 2-week period where, they could become symptomatic after having visited you, to determine if the patient has, possibly has COVID, or if they've gotten diagnosed since they've left your center. And we have a form that I think it's already been uploaded to the website that you can use. Thank you, Judy.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if you are a center that has since shut down your surgery services, this is an opportunity to look back. I would suggest maybe going back 2 weeks to the patients that have come through your facility, just to give them almost like a wellness check. If you have the tool, great. Make your own if you don't, just to see how they are. Perhaps they had no symptoms and now they do. And it's just to give you a sense of well-being for the other patients that were in your center, as well as your staff that may have been in contact with a patient that has come down with it now. It's not necessarily a post-op infection call at this point. It's just a wellness call. I think that would be a wise move, and it's also a good utilization of your staff, and to keep them on your payroll.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. And did somebody say that we're going to have a form that you can use for that?
Yeah. And I'm going to hang up so that Judy can get on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I read right from here and have people hear me, or do I need to call on?
No, we can.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Rather than go through the steps of doing that. That's all. I was just trying to be helpful.
Okay. I guess that sounds good.
Yeah.
Yes.
If anybody on the podcast line can't hear me, just let us know and we'll do it different.
We hear Judy. Okay.
It sounds
If they
good.
couldn't hear you, they probably couldn't tell you.
Wow. So now we can get above
That's-
our 4 limit. Thank you. Oh, we're learning a lot here. This is great. So thank you very much. Go ahead, Judy.
All right, thanks, Judy.
Okay. So if you're mandated to shut down, or if your governing body decides that in the interest of public health, you're going to shut down, there are just a few things we wanted you to think about. Certainly, you need to communicate that decision with your local health department. It would be wise if you placed an explanatory statement on your website, something in the effect of, in light of current events, we have decided to close the center effective on such and such a date, to reopen on such and such a date if it's appropriate. You may also want to contact your local news media to make sure that it's announced that that's closed. Once you've done that, you're going to have to contact all the patients you had scheduled ahead of time. You may choose to reschedule them now or wait until you see when you've chosen a reopen date to do that. You may want to research acute care facilities nearby that you could either donate your supplies or PPE to that you're not using, because we know what a hardship it's become. And you may also want to encourage your staff to seek out ways that they can aid in the crisis in a hospital, urgent care, or a testing site near you.
One thing that I would recommend in donating any supplies and PPE, just make sure you keep enough on hand for when it's time for you to reopen. It's one thing to give your supplies, and it's a wonderful thought process. However, you also have to be able to provide what you need to your patients and your staff when indeed you open your doors. So consider that in your donation thoughts, okay?
Okay, good point.
And we did get a question on YouTube. Says, within the 2-week period, what is the best ideal time frame? Should it be midway? I'm not sure what they're talking about. John?
Oh, probably the phone calls would be my thought,
yes.
Is how they're thinking. That's up to you guys. I would, if you're going out the 2 weeks, I would give them probably 5 to 7 days. Obviously, there's going to be those that are 14 days out, which is fine. But you don't have to call every patient on day one when you implement this process. So if they were there 14 days ago, you figure, give them a couple of days on top of that to start having symptoms. And not to get those symptoms confused with post-surgical symptoms, because sometimes our temperatures go up because our body's in the process of fighting off infection and fighting the breaks in their skin, et cetera, et cetera. So I would wait at least 5 days from their surgical date, if that makes sense. That's just a suggestion.
Go ahead, Lori. Judy.
Okay. And once you've done those things, check with your own state to see if you have reporting requirements. We've gone over what New York's requirements are, that you have to report to night ports if you shut down. That's going to be different by state. So you're going to want to check to make sure that you've reported this closure temporary or not to whomever needs to know that. So once you've done that, what are you going to do with all of the people? So we have some suggestions about what you can do with the employees you keep in your center, although you no longer have patients. Now it's a good time to use some of that time to work on some key activities. First of all, do a thorough cleaning of the center, all of the areas. Do it with your environmental service surveillance form in hand so that you can update that form to places that may have been missed. This is a good time to make sure that we're as clean and neat and uncluttered as possible. This would be a good time to do your annual education. If you haven't done it for 2020 yet, we can give you the resources you need to do that via Zoom, via Skype, via WebEx. We're here for you. Just let us know if you want to use that time to do that. Do other in-services for your staff. AHS has a complete library of relevant training, so we can send you whatever you're looking for. Just let us know what you need. This would be a good time to begin to cross-train your staff. By doing that, it improves, the employees' awareness of what else goes on beyond their own little bubble, and it will increase your flexibility when scheduling gets rough. Again, on my list was to consider reaching out to those patients who had recently undergone surgery, certainly before this nightmare began, and to use that patient check wellness form that we have that we've all referred to now several times. You may want to use this time to initiate some kind of a mentoring program, have established employees work with new employees or underperforming individuals, and that could truly benefit from the additional attention and support. Use this time to review and update essential files and resources. Your employee files, your credentialing files. Have somebody go through your SDS book, make sure it's current and up to date. Your IFU manuals, make sure you have everything in there that you need for your equipment These are critical parts of our business, but unfortunately, we don't always have the time to get this done. So now is a good time. See if you'd like to go through competencies on your staff. There is no law that says it can only be done once a year, and refreshers are always useful. Have someone go through your supplies, your equipment, your medications for expiration dates. Make sure that those things are up to date as much as they can be. So there are things to keep you busy, even if we don't have a patient load. If you have elected to assign some of your people to work from home, I just want to remind you, be sure that the activities you give them don't breach any HIPAA laws. You cannot send protected health information home with any of your employees. What you can have them do is, if you have an employee qualified in nursing or critical care, have them do a complete review of your policy and procedure manual. If not, have someone go for grammatical and formatting errors. Have somebody spend the time on it, and then have them compare your table of contents with that for your accrediting body, whether it's AHSC or Joint Commission or whatever, to make sure that you're in good shape. You can hold your QAPI meetings via video chat, just like we are here. You can hold board meetings this way, just like we are here. Have staff meetings with your staff, even though they're home and you're not. Encourage them to work on their CE credits if they need them. Again, have them do the online training in infection control or PALS or ACLS, something that keeps them up to date and working. Give somebody the task of researching infection control guidelines, quality improvement protocols, risk management concepts. Have them prepare little in-services for each other, so that you can get together via WebEx or conference call and everybody has something to share. It keeps them involved in each other as well. Have somebody go through both your internal and external communication lists and make sure they're up to date for emergencies. One of Alex's ideas: promote team culture with video-based activities and games. Keep everybody in touch with each other. Keep everybody together.
And because I love fun so much,
COVID-19 stuff. There's events and drills. Write up incident reports for patients or staff that have come in ill or with a fever. And now is a good time to collect documentations of the expenses you've occurred because of this. I'm sure there will be reimbursement timeframes involved. So if you want to put somebody on that task, that's something they could do from their home. Cohorts, tell me if I've forgotten anything, if I've hit on everything we talked about.
That sounded really good.
I just came up with another one.
Okay.
Finally learn about life safety. Who wants to learn about life safety while they're at home? You can buy it NFPA in 101 or 99.
Make sure that everything's done.
Yeah.
Good idea, Alex.
You don't want them to quit, though.
Yeah.
No. I like that whole cross-training point you made, Judy, too, though, because that's something we've talked about before that improves communication so well. So that's a great time to do that.
Yeah, it not only makes each of your employees appreciate what the other one does, if you get into a scheduling jam, at least you have somebody there for you. You know what I mean? It's worth the time and effort.
I agree.
Okay, Ann, we have a special guest today, Ann Geier, who is the Chief Nursing Officer for Surgical Information Systems, one of the sponsor of our show, and a very, very dear friend. And thank you so much, Ann, for joining us. We're not going to hold against you that you're down in beautiful Palm Beach, and the rest of us are up here.
And one of our listeners, one of our listeners had said that you were their very favorite in the industry. So they're very excited to hear from you.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
John. Okay.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
When you and I talked this morning about what I could contribute, the first thing I thought of is everybody's mental health, because I'm starting to see a lot of stress exhibited amongst my clients, my friends in the industry, the uncertainty. I'm a low stress person. It takes a lot to get me upset. But even I'm feeling it. It's like you're starting to feel closed in, and I'm used to working remotely. But the uncertainty is: my center going to stay open? Am I going to get paid? If I have to take unemployment insurance, I've never done that before. How long is this going to go on? I mean, everybody that's on this call probably understands that feeling. And there are things that you can do. Now, my number one release is to exercise. So I'll go out and I'll do a hard walk in 80 degrees weather because I find when I get back, I feel better. I noticed that for surgical information system, Cigna is our insurer, and they set up resources for CIS employees or anybody covered, I guess, by this virus or the effect of the COVID-19, that they are offering almost like an employee assistance plan that you could call in. They're providing hotlines. They're providing things like sending prescriptions, 90-day prescriptions at no cost. I mean, there's just all kinds of things that they're trying to do. There are resources out there, but it's this is, as we talked about, this is like the zombie apocalypse to me. In our wildest dreams, we could not have anticipated a scenario like this. And so it's a matter of taking it a day at a time, trying to do things that you can wrap your arms around, little baby steps. The financial situation is going to be critical for some of us. So it's going to be very important when the cash flow dries up that the people in charge have thought about how are you going to tell your employees what's going on without scaring the living daylights out of them. You don't want them to head to the hospital where they take a full-time job and then you reopen, you have no staff. So I'm really worried about that. And I would appreciate it if anybody has anything to offer on that you write into John and Sue and just put something that we can talk about in the near future on how you're handling the stress. I mean, and drinking is not the solution. I think
Thanks,
a
Ann.
glass of wine sounds awfully good, but 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 isn't going to do it because the problems aren't going to go away. So what are you going to do to get over the hump when you start to feel your neck getting tight, your back hurting? You don't feel like yourself and you can't put your finger on it. It's a good possibility that it's what's going on around us. And then you worry about your children and you worry about the schools being closed. So I hate to be Debbie Downer because, I talk about Krabby Carl when I do my talks, but we got to think about this stuff and take care of yourselves. So the emails that I send to you all, I put on there, stay safe and wash your hands often. As simple as that sounds, we can't neglect it. We have to take care of ourselves. There may not be anybody there to take care of us. So that's my 2 cents for today.
Well said. And I'd also invite Ann would be glad to be on this podcast. I'm talking for her, but I know all of us are happy to be getting the word out. We are getting a lot of support for the podcast. A lot of people are listening. Not as many people live as that listen to the recorded podcast. So if you have some topics that you would love to have Ann talk about, and we're going to talk a little bit later on about what other things are going on here.
John, I have a quick question.
Sure.
We want to invite people to this podcast, do they have to be on Podbean to get it live?
Well, yeah, very good question. So Podbean is the way that you can listen to the podcast live and to interact with us. We are now pushing to YouTube live stream, and we're monitoring it. It does seem to be working well. And given that we've gotten a couple questions, or we had one comment coming back, obviously people are able to hear us out there too. We're going to monitor. We're going to see what the recording comes up like.
Okay.
But I think so that I think YouTube has a little bit more of a broad audience there.
Oh, I agree.
Podbean Live. So we'll continue to monitor that. We did look into Facebook Live. Unfortunately, I cannot do both Facebook and YouTube at the same time. If people
YouTube,
yeah. So I think YouTube is a kind of a better and more universal because you can see it both on your cell phone and on the computer.
Okay.
But yeah,
Sounds
so
good.
Absolutely, thank you. Go Sue.
And we have a question from the audience, from Christina. If you were to get a confirmed COVID-19 case, is that an immediate shutdown?
I don't believe it's immediate shutdown. You would contact your local or state Department of Health and see what they have to say, and you would just obviously quarantine anyone that has symptoms. You would follow the reported, I don't want to say rules, but the steps to take. You would do a thorough cleaning. You would, proceed that way. But it wouldn't be an automatic shutdown, as far as I'm aware.
And
Janet,
check your state and local guidance. I know New York City has some guidance out now and I think New York State actually has somewhat similar guidance up on the HCS site. In terms of healthcare workers, there's some exemptions if they've had contact with people who have COVID-19. In terms of not having to quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
There was a follow-up question: does it matter if it's a patient versus an employee?
No, I mean, obviously an employee would have a lot more contact with other staff members and doctors versus a patient who would have a shorter, time frame of being able to infect your staff.
And I wonder, I know we have recommended the Department of Health a lot of times. I think they must be so overwhelmed because we're not always we've had people that have reached out and not gotten very complete answers. But again, I'm sure they're overwhelmed.
What he was saying is that they were told to go to the website.
Yeah. And, it could just be, as I said, they might just really not. I think everybody's kind of just struggling their way through this. And I wonder, like some centers, if they're close to closing. I know some of ours have had issues, but they're considering closing down within a day or two, and that may affect it too. You can just kind of weigh the benefits.
Treat it like you would any other patient that came in that you found out had an infectious process, whether it was C. diff, whether they were positive TB. What you would do is you would isolate, you would terminally clean, and you would practice safe, use your PPE and safe hygiene. Would you close down? I would imagine if that person came in contact with everybody, you might want to consider it. However, as Jenna said, there are some sites out there that are explaining if a healthcare worker becomes tested positive or comes in contact with someone that's positive, how they should behave. I don't think you would have an automatic close down, but you would take the process to do what you find is the best thing that's going to protect everybody. If you cannot discuss it with your Department of Health. If you have a hospital partner, talk to them, talk to the infection preventionists there as well. Get their input. But that would be my my advice at this time.
Thanks, Laurie.
Thanks. Mm-hmm. Alex, barring any other questions at this point, Alex, you want to start talking about community participation, put it in the perspective of emergency preparedness too.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've been told since, I believe, November 2017, we should be reaching out to our communities. And usually that means our emergency departments of our emergency department for our counties and our states to offer up ourselves for help during a disaster. And kind of now is when that comes to fruition, if they so choose. So part of that communication in the past has been, here's how many beds we have. Here's how many staff members and what kind of supplies we have on staff and our square footage. And most of us haven't gotten much back from our departments of health or our departments of emergency preparedness. But, again, now's the time to reiterate to them that we are here, we are willing to help, and when doing so, when you send such a letter to them or call them or email them, each department's a little bit different for each county in New York or whoever's the local jurisdiction in other states. Each one is a little bit different. So when you're reaching out to them, they might have an email address or they might have mail's not really the best way right now, but the phone number or email address are the best two ways to reach out to them and let them know what you have available for them. And then the other community partners that we want to be reaching out to are our hospitals. And this is all part of, some of our choices that we have to make. Some states haven't made it quite there yet. New York City, being that they can only do non-elective procedures currently, and they have to determine what those are and whether or not they can stay open without doing those. Each location in the U.S. is different right now, and even Massachusetts, Ohio, some of the other places that have started to have to make tough decisions. So among our decisions are to continue with our current not elective caseload, or if in other states, just our current full caseload, and to potentially, if we're in areas extremely affected by COVID-19, to start taking on non-elective cases from the hospital within your current scope. Really can't do anything outside of our scope without 1135. That's brought down from your Department of Health on the state level. But you can offer to your hospital that you can take on some of their burden of surgeries, whether that be through current doctors that are associated with both organizations or through new doctors that you have to credential. Another option is close and isolate, allowing staff to seek work at hospitals, which we talked a little bit about, or where they're most needed, through your local hospital, contacting again your local hospitals or your emergency departments or your local Department of Health, with your county or local authority. And then the third option that is starting to come up here in New York State is becoming a testing site. And this idea is just in its infancy for ASCs. There's already been a couple, I believe. I was reading, this is more anecdotally, but I've been reading on the news about a couple Midwestern ASCs that have become testing sites for their states. But in New York, we now have gotten the contact information where you can go to, where you can email your information to start the process of potentially becoming a testing site. Some of the things that they're looking for, and we list these out for everybody just because, quite honestly, if your Department of Health is requesting that you participate, or if you're trying to participate with them in helping them with combating COVID-19 in any way, these are all relevant items for them. So first off is ownership. Who are your owners, whether or not they're private physicians or, you're part owned by a hospital. Your center's location, county, region, of course, those are very relevant, so they know where you are. Square footage of your facility. This is important because it helps tell them what your occupancy level is. And I would even say one of the, in terms of other pertinent information that you'd want to include, the facility layout, an actual map of your facility might be helpful, especially if you're communicating via email, pretty easy to attach. And also your parking capacity. If I know all of us have heard about the drive-in testing centers, so that would very much help them understand where that capacity would be at if they used your site for such a location. And and then also talk to them about your current status as a facility. So we're talking about if you're a startup, your brand new facility, or if you're, you're current and established, or if you're a former facility, if you've closed down or you're in the process of closing down, let them know that maybe that your site is available. Some other items that they might be interested in, your current supply level, your current staffing level, and what types of staff you have on payroll, and then also the number of beds with oxygen outlets. That may become very, very important for the Department of Health to know. Another item that I've been hearing is that they might be interested in our anesthesia machines. Jenna brought this up earlier today.
I believe the president might have actually referred to it earlier too, correct?
Yep. Yeah, that was Trump that brought that up. So I will be, of course, monitoring that situation as things develop there. So those are really most of your options. Obviously, the first one again is continue as is until we receive further notice. But any questions on any of that?
No, we don't have any questions at this time. So let me, before we go in, we're going to have a little bit of a financial discussion. Zach is waiting in the wings. And I'm sorry.
Oh, did we want to ask Judy that question?
Oh,
Lori that question?
which one was that? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Go, Sue.
We had a question through the email about hydroxychloroquine. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but have you heard anything about if that's really a possible answer, Lori? I know it used to treat, or it's been used to treat malaria and rheumatoid arthritis or something, and now so they're saying that's been safety tested, and could it actually, and that there might be some, but
I think that's right now they're looking into it as a possibility as a treatment for coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's still in the testing phases. I don't know that it's been proven, yes, this is it, and set up and go, but I know the president has talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is something that is in the works, but nothing that I've heard definitive.
I'm kind of looking it up. They're saying there's been some encouraging results, but as we all know, sometimes things start off looking really good and you get deeper into the testing and may not so.
Right. Plus, we're not usually good at live people testing. We usually start on smaller four-legged friends. So, this is, a whole new arena for them at this time. But, at least they're trying. They're trying.
Mm-hmm. And at least it's not, where it's been around a while, it's not a new drug, so they don't have to worry as much about, they already know the side effects and that kind of thing. But whether it's going to do the trick is another question. So. Okay.
We did have a follow-up question. One of our listeners, Zach, turn your volume down. We had one of our listeners came in a little bit late and wanted clarification on the testing centers or specimen collection centers, Alex.
Yeah, sure. So again, New York State. So New York State is trying to focus right now on South Westchester. But we do have, so specifically centers in that region, they're very interested in becoming testing sites. But we do also have, we've got the contact information. It's an email address where requests can be sent for any New York State centers if they want to become testing sites. Obviously, we can't guarantee, but DOH will have the final say on that. So again, you'd just be requesting basically a hearing from, not really a hearing, but requesting from Department of Health to become a testing site. So we'll share that to anybody that wants it. I don't think the Department of Health really wants that to become public information. So just on an individual basis, we'll share that.
And I did want to remind everybody, I know I keep reminding you, but the importance of visiting the website periodically to see the updates there. I did not update it today. My staff has told me that I need to update it tonight, so we'll be working on that after the podcast, after dinner maybe, and we'll get that totally up to date with the most recent information and to add all the stuff that we've been talking about here. Before we go into the financial discussion, I did want to just kind of give you a little brief interlude here about what we're planning on an ongoing basis. We will continue doing these live podcasts on every other day or thereabouts type basis. We might have one tomorrow. We haven't made a decision yet about that, depending upon our ability to get a hold of a lawyer to talk about some of the legal issues here. We're going to be we're also going to be preparing some educational programs that we think will be useful to you as you go into isolation. Some of the things in the planning stages, actually well beyond the planning stages, the infection preventionist training and updates. Lori is working on that based upon some of the training that she's done for the New York State Association. That will, for if you're an Ambulatory Healthcare Strategies client, those will be free to the staff of our retainer clients, and you'll be able to order it, and it'll be a full day session, right, Lori? I guess we're going to be 6 to 8 hours of wonderful discussion about infection prevention.
Oh my goodness. And also anyone out there with ideas, feel free to send them in because your brains are really, really needed.
That's right. And to that end, we've already announced that we're going to be doing this training, the types of things that you would like to learn. I mean, Lori's got a lot of great slides, but she would love to modify them to answer those things that are very specific to you. We are Ambulatory Healthcare. I should mention this. I haven't mentioned this in a while. Ambulatory Healthcare Strategies is a authorized AEU and IPCU credit provider. So we will be providing, needless to say, an awful lot of infection prevention credits this quarter when we come to the end, which is actually coming pretty close. So we'll give you more information that's available on the website. And if you have been a listener for a while, by the way, you are CAPE or I'm sorry, I don't think we had any CAPE credits last quarter, but we did have quite a number, 4.5 credit hours of CASC. AEUs. So you can go to the website to see that. So this infection preventionist training and some people who already are CAPE certified might find it useful. Just kind of go back and maybe see some of the basics and avail themselves of additional training here. And it will be interactive. We will be using a webinar type format. However, it's not going to be just Lori speaking because that would put all of you to sleep and probably painful. So Lori and I are going to interact together since we have so much fun together, and I think it'll be very interesting. We're also looking into some finance, accounting, coding, and billing training. So those of you that have been listeners for a while know that Christine Benton and I have been trying to put together an in-person finance and accounting seminar, including coding and billing. And we were planning on that for late 2020 or early 2021. So guess what? We're going to hopefully do that in a live webinar type format with a number of different speakers. And then I think, and we're going to do some administrator training also. All of our administrators, you can never stop learning. And there are a lot of new people out there that are administrators that are coming into this field without a lot of knowledge about the requirements and the administration. So we'll be doing that. And the most exciting thing is that we are going to be doing a virtual conference. We don't have time frame for this, but we will be doing a virtual conference for those of you who are not going to be able to make it to ASCA 2020. We're going to have the option of going to a virtual conference here with many speakers that we have, including people like myself and Ann Geier, who does a lot of speaking publicly. So we're very excited about that. We're already putting together a list of speakers to this, and it'll be in a live format and a webinar format, but very different than a regular webinar. You're not going to just see slides up there. We're going to do some interactive stuff, and I think you'll enjoy it. So that's all to come. Keep a very close eye on what we're up to here. And listen, if you are not on LinkedIn with me, do ask, what's the term? It's not called friend, to connect with me through LinkedIn. Though you can connect with me on Facebook too, but through LinkedIn you can connect with me. I accept all people, obviously, and you can get immediate information about that. Zach, we've been asking Zach to do a bunch of research on some of the financial things, and Zach, there is no way we can go through all that material. So hopefully you have you have things summarized here. He's got like 17 pages worth of information here.
A lot of good information.
And we will post all that information. But in the meantime, Zach, why don't you kind of just give a brief overview of what we're going to have posted on the website and just some of the general things that our clients need. And before you launch into that, we have a new sponsor of the podcast. I'm sorry, hang on one second. Bear with me. So we do have a new sponsor of the podcast. It's BHG Funding, and those of you that are familiar with BHG, they provide funding for patients as well as surgery clinics, working. We're having some problems with somebody's feed.
Yeah.
So if you are interested in information, we're going to be posting stuff on the website at some point, but they are available. They're interested in funding, and at this point, with everything that is happening, it could become very important. So we'll pass out information. In the meantime, if you have a question about it, send information to me at comments at ascpodcast.com, and I'll give you some contact information. So go ahead, Zach.
Sure. Is everyone able to hear me okay?
Yep. So good.
Yep.
Okay, good.
I know you don't have a dog, so it's not your dog in the background.
That's right. So I guess to begin, on one of the earlier episodes this week, I had talked about some resources that come from the Small Business Administration. I guess one small clarification I would have for that is some of these programs that are listed on the Small Business Administration website are specifically related to coronavirus. Some of them are just general assistance programs that they offer. So be aware of that. Some of the specific ones for coronavirus deal with a small business administration working directly with state governors to provide targeted low-interest loans to small businesses. They help small businesses gain access to capital. There are plenty of resources on their website. Hopefully we'll be able to post a lot of these links that they have. Let's see. They also provide local assistance by at least putting businesses in contact with their local branches of the Small Business Administration. They have a directory on their website for local offices. Moving on to just some general federal guidelines that have been posted. Some from the CDC. There's a coronavirus response toolkit. They have plenty of useful information that comes from there. Some of it comes from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They have a pretty extensive website with plenty of links and so forth that come from there. I guess summarizing the broad topics, they have a link back to the Small Business Administration page themselves, statewide initiatives to help small businesses, assistance from banks and credit card companies, federal assistance for small businesses directly through the Chamber of Commerce, including there's a link they talk about the Chamber of Commerce has petitioned Congress and the presidential administration to on behalf of citizens to provide some of this relief. There is. They also point out that there has been tax relief opportunities having to do with at least an extension of businesses and individuals having to pay their taxes. Some additional, just general information is this proposal by the Trump administration to send money to every citizen This was first announced, I believe, Tuesday, and as of today, the update was they hope to get this going forth in the next 3 weeks or so, and if the need should still be around in the next 6 weeks beyond that, they said they would potentially send money again, so they would do it ongoing, hopefully.
And
along with that comes
is to make sure that we're encouraging people to continue to spend money out there and to keep that economy going.
For sure, yeah. So along with that comes the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This is a new bill that is being signed into law, taking effect April 2nd, to provide certain employees with paid and unpaid leave and protection. Job protection, rather, during the whole COVID-19 pandemic. Let's see. This would provide, among other things, an emergency expansion of the Family Medical and Leave Act and an emergency sick paid leave for employees. Moving on, I have some specific resources that for New York State, if we have time to go into that. I don't know if we have.
I think what we'll do is we'll post it on the website. Our listenership is starting to drop a little bit here, so we had a peak of 51 here. We're down to about 20 right now. It's still pretty good.
We're hitting that 5 o'clock time.
And we're hitting that 5 o'clock time, right? And I haven't eaten all day, so I had that hard part. But does anybody have any questions for any of our speakers today? And does anybody want to call in? We'd certainly be willing to. All of our slots are taken. Zach, actually, would you log off so we free up a thing?
Sure thing.
Back on if they have a question for you, but thanks.
Sure thing.
So we do have one line open for any questions that we might have, and as well as we're monitoring all the questions on all of our feeds. I don't see any at this point. Anybody have any last minute comments? I would just like to thank everybody for, first of all, putting up with our technological challenges here. We're learning very fast, but we're very excited about the opportunities that come from this. I think, I've been in the field for 30 years, and Ann, being so much younger than I am, she can't say the same thing, of course, but, this is unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it, but also I think it's an opportunity for us as an industry to show how valuable we are to the infrastructure here. And I think hopefully we're going to continue to see, all of us stepping up to the plate here. And we hope that we're going to come out of this stronger than ever before. If you are a client of Ambulatory Healthcare Strategies, make sure you continue to be in touch with all of us. One of the questions or one of the issues that came up today with one of our clients was, if we start laying people off, this was the administrator and the office manager, what about me? Am I going to be laid off? And my simple answer is I don't know how you could possibly lay off the administrator and or the nurse manager or the office manager, because somebody's got to keep those, keep the doors, literally open. At least, be able to respond to, the various needs and to be able to ramp up very quickly. Organizations such as ours, of course, will be able to keep things moving in the background during this whole time, but ultimately you're going to need to have somebody responsible for that. So for those of you owners out there that are thinking, I don't leave all my staff, I don't think we can go all the way down, but but definitely make sure that you are monitoring your cash flow. Somebody's got to be writing the checks, to pay the bills, and of course any advice that we can give you, feel free to call, email, etc. And to that end, we really want you to send comments at ascpodcast.com, anything that you would like us to talk about. The big topic in the last couple of days that we've been getting questions about is the unemployment benefits, just that whole process there. So we're going to get into some legal issues within the next couple of days with a couple speakers.
And we may end up putting a link to that KBR. I know Zach mentioned it briefly, but I know we were kind of rushing him through that. But the KBR Client Advisory, which is just about the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, but they kind of delved into the extra benefits that people could have, what to do that your employees can take their PTO or they can choose to leave it. If it's kind of considered a leave, you're not firing them. It's just an extended leave. And there was some information in there about how the small employers. And I don't know the details on this, but how they would be getting a tax break within 3 months to rebuild up that fund for themselves. And I did want one other question that we had earlier today from somebody. I know we've talked about what people can do during their downtime, but can you give a quick summary of what would be the most important thing? Like, say somebody's deciding over a period of a couple of days, okay, we just have to shut down. Are there a couple of really important things for people to do that they would be to help them be ready for starting back up again? Or is it just all that stuff that we mentioned, trying to keep people busy and getting?
Yeah, that's a good point, and I'm going to call on the three surveyors on the line to help out a little bit here. So, what's everybody's opinion on this? I have my own. Go ahead. Why don't you start with Lori? What are you grabbing on the way out the door?
Yeah, on the way out the door or the way back in?
Well, to get ready for your way back in.
Yeah, to get
on your
ready
way
for
out the door, so that you know that it'll make it easier getting started up again.
Well, I would make sure you have some supplies. I would make sure that you, if you are doing your outdates before you close the door, I think I would.
About outdated drugs and supplies.
Right, anything that's dated.
Right.
If you put aside the following month's outdates, so that you have to close your eyes and assume that, worst case, you won't be back for a month, so that they're off your shelf, but they're there if you come back in 2 weeks. And to be used first, I would suggest that. I would have open communication with my staff so that they know that you're going to call them, and hopefully they'll be able to come running with bells on and cupcakes or something. You know what I mean?
We can't have cupcakes.
I forgot, John. I forgot. But that sort of thing, so that they know that you're still. In their corner, want them there, that they're your focus as well. That's important because, as Ann said earlier, you don't want them to go to the hospital and then stay there. So, I think that's important, and, just get ready to clean again. You're going to have to re-clean before you open your doors. I know that's...
And make organization. You might have to bring an outside company in to help you in that process, too. You might want to make those arrangements beforehand.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just that sort of thing. And think about your vendors. There's people that you've cut off ties with, your laundry service, your garbage disposal. You're going to have to get them restarted. So, have them on speed dial as well.
And hopefully they'll be there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that if they're smaller companies, make sure you check ahead of time to make sure they've made it through.
Ann, do you have any observations?
No, I was just thinking, besides everything that Lori said, do the things that just everybody hates to do.
Yeah.
And Lori's already mentioned it, like reviewing your policies and procedures. Something that surveyors hate is going in to do a survey and finding some other surgery center's name on the policies because they were templated and nobody bothered to read them. And you can divvy that out so somebody's not overwhelmed in doing it. But all the chores, the employee files that have 15 years of employee records in them, what about taking those apart and scanning some of the old files? This is a great time to do that kind of stuff. We all hate to do it, but then think of how nice it's going to be to go to those files and not have to go through a stack that's 8 inches thick for one file. I think that if you put your heads together, I think you can come up with things for people to do that you come out ahead of the game when you do reopen your doors.
And I'm sure this is something that all three of us that are surveyors are passionate about. Please read your accreditation handbook.
Okay.
This is the time to memorize it. I'm still shocked when people go in and they don't have it memorized. I mean, I think all of us as surveyors know exactly the chapter. That's a sure sign that you don't know what's going on in there if you don't know what the chapters are for, at least for AAHC. So please read through it and comment on it and figure out where your weaknesses are right now so that you can prepare. Or while you're going through it, maybe you can fix some of those things remotely. Sue, I think you've...
Yep, I just wanted to mention something that actually Jenna sent out to us from MSNBC Morning Joe from today. I didn't read all the way through it, but it's an article about how ambulatory surgery centers can expand surge capacity as we go into this. So I thought that was a great little plug for how we can be useful.
We'll put a reference to that. It's nice to get some positive press coverage for our industry at this difficult time. Ann, did you have anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
And I think I'll just reiterate the same thing. As you're going out the door, be prepared for, make sure you have the information to be able to do your board meetings, finish up your quality improvement things. Your board is going to have a lot of questions, and doing remote board meetings is going to be important. Make sure you have the ability to document all the things that are going on. If you need help with templates, there's a lot of information that's available on our website, template-wise, as well as, of course, if you're a client, that's what we do for you. So we'll be documenting that as we go along.
Speaking of documentation, John,
sure.
Also like to add, making sure that we've been documenting the expenses that we've incurred due to the coronavirus. We do now have a list from actually our helpful lobbyists and consultants in New York State. So they put together a pretty comprehensive list of all of the staffing, general costs, payments, and other items that you should be documenting. So we'll post that as well. Okay.
I think unless there are any other questions, let's just take a quick look. Scan. I don't have any questions on any of the boards. We are still considering whether we're going to do a podcast tomorrow, so stay tuned. I know all of you are keeping a close eye on it. And with that, well, that's it for this episode of the ASC Podcast with John Goehle. Join us again, and please consider becoming a patron by going to our website at ascpodcast.com and spread the word about our podcast with your friends and colleagues, and do us the honor of hitting that subscribe button. If you hit that subscribe button, you're going to know when we go on the air and know about upcoming episodes, as well as whenever we post a new episode. We'll be posting a recording of this to our as a podcast, and then we'll also be posting a video so that you can see behind the scenes if you weren't watching us on YouTube, and that should go up later today. The sound editor for this episode is Susan Cronkite, executive producer John Goehle. Research assistance is provided by Susan Cronkite, Jenna Alvarez, Judy D'Ambrosio, Alex Borneman, Zach Calritis, and Lori Rodericks. Music is provided by Media Sushi and Mike Noah. The ASC Podcast with John Goehle is hosted on Podbean and is available on all major podcast channels.
Okay, and the most exciting part. This podcast is an educational and operational tool and is not intended to be a comprehensive resource for all rules, regulations, and standards that an ambulatory surgery center must meet. The advice provided should not be considered as, nor does it constitute legal advice or opinion. When reviewing specific situations involving legal and regulatory issues, attorneys and other professionals should be consulted. This has been a production of Eden Group Development. All rights are reserved. We would like to thank our sponsors, Ambulatory Healthcare Strategies, Surgical Information Systems, and Encompass Healthcare Data Solutions. For more information about our sponsors, please visit our website. If you're interested in advertising or sponsoring the ASC Podcast with John Goehle, please email us at info@ascpodcast.com. We would love to hear your questions and comments. Please email us at comments@ascpodcast.com.